Vince McMahon would have never let this happen in WWE. Now, in September 2025, Mark Shapiro, who's the president of TKO, spoke at a conference regarding WWE's ticket pricing, and he decided to use his platform to take a direct shot at Vince McMahon. WWE is not where the UFC yet is on ticket yield. We have our work to do there. We know we have a lot of room there because Vince McMahon was primarily pricing tickets for families and wasn't totally focused on maxing the opportunity there. Now that we've seen what we can do with UFC, we're replicating that in terms of ticket yield and holding back and advanced sales when it comes to on location on WWE's side, and it's working out really well. Now, these comments have led to significant backlash from fans, and these comments ultimately highlight the difference between the way Vince McMahon operated WWE compared to the way TKO are currently steering the ship. First, let's look at the outrageous ticket prices. Now, under the TKO era of WWE, ticket prices have gradually increased year on year. Whilst this business practice is understandable, Shapiro outright declaring that it could increase their prices is very alarming. The pricing model the company utilizes has already received a ton of backlash, as most fans simply can't afford to attend shows, and attending major events such as Wrestlelamia has really become a once-in-a-lifetime purchase for fans. But it really shouldn't be this way. Now, first case in point is Wrestlemania 42's ticket prices. According to a loyal WWE fan called Beard Guy, tickets have become out of control. In fact, according to him, front and center seats for each night of Wrestlemania 42 in Las Vegas are being listed as $70,000 per ticket. Meanwhile, seats in rows 2 and 3 aren't much better at all, with prices somewhere between $35,000 to $50,000 each. Now, to put this in perspective, last year Wrestlemania 41's front row center tickets were priced around $50,000, an astronomical figure in itself, but when you compare that to last year, it's around $20,000 more for that individual ticket. The same goes for rows 2 and 3, as they were around the $30,000 to $35,000 range. This leap in ticket cost for Wrestlemania 42 is substantial, especially for those closest to the ring. Now, we're all aware of Green Shirt Guy in WWE, the man who's attended almost every WWE event since 2012, and he always manages to get that illustrious front row center seat. Now, word is it that he spent $100,000 on his ticket last year at Wrestlemania 41. What he does in order to afford that is his business alone. But dropping $100,000 on one ticket is insane, and the main problem is that when TKO acknowledged that people are still spending this amount of money on tickets, it's only going to get worse from there. Perhaps next year he'll drop $200,000 on the seat. But it's strange that Mark Shapiro is taking a shot at McMahon for his version of pricing models. Taking aim at McMahon for his conduct in relation to the allegations facing him is fair game. However, taking a shot at him for making WWE tickets affordable to families is totally uncalled for. What is the goal with that particular comment? McMahon's approach when it came to ticket prices were never a contested issue, and using the fact that he used a pricing model so families could watch the product seemed like a bizarre and unnecessary shot. Shapiro's comments directed at pricing tickets for families is worth examining, as what exactly does Shapiro mean by this? Is he suggesting that WWE is no longer for families? Well, if that's the case, why is the product still a PG presentation, and why do all their respective sponsors, including Mattel, know that the product is no longer aimed at families? Now, it could be the case that Mark Shapiro wanted to brag and boast in a business setting in regards to how well the product is doing, and that's fine, but the comments directed at McMahon and outright admitting that ticket sales can be increased is frustrating to say the very least. Ticket prices under McMahon's regime at WWE seemed fair. When you look at ticket prices around WrestleMania 19, ticket prices for front row center were going around about $400 to maybe even $1,000 at most. And whilst we could make the difference for inflation, it still wouldn't come anywhere near the ticket pricing that we have today. But what does TKO feel is the justification for increasing its ticket prices? But what Shapiro needs to realize is that for them to increase ticket prices over the years, the product has to remain hot, popular, and relevant. Wrestling, particularly WWE, goes through highs and lows, and this has been the case for decades. If TKO expects to just ride the wave of that initial momentum, then it's going to dramatically fail. Soon enough, they could find themselves with half-empty arenas and being forced to lower ticket prices, making it so that fans can actually afford tickets to attend shows. TKO, in essence, inherited a wrestling product that was red hot. Due to McMahon, who definitely lost his way from a creative aspect, being out of the picture, and Triple H taking charge of WWE creative, the WWE product was seen as cool again by many, and lapsed fans were reintroduced to the product. WWE also had the Bloodline story firing on all cylinders, and for the first time since perhaps the 90s, the WWE product had universal appeal. But what happens if Triple H drops the ball from a creative aspect? Does TKO simply replace him? Well, Triple H is, well, mostly well-liked by fans, and the question would be who would TKO even replace him with? That's the primary issue here. TKO would then expect this new name to take them to the promised land once more, but there's no guarantee that this would happen, and even if they replace Triple H, talent morale could completely crash, as who's to say that the person who replaces Triple H even knows anything about wrestling in general? Whilst fans love to poke fun at Triple H's creative, the same couldn't be said for the talent, as a lot of the locker room adore Triple H. Most of the names in the locker room work with the game in NXT, and they see him as a father figure. We all saw earlier in the year how the locker room reacted to WWE cutting R-Truth from his WWE deal, so a similar situation could occur there. But this is why Vince McMahon was good for WWE. Vince McMahon had a solid business sense, but he always wanted to make wrestling affordable to all. This was a smart approach, as even when the pro wrestling product wasn't hot, and it sure wasn't during the final few years running WWE, ticket prices weren't so insanely high that fans attending shows would feel ripped off. Well, that is unless they were watching the main event of WrestleMania 34. McMahon had a grounded yet realistic approach to pricing, and it worked throughout multiple decades of running WWE. Sadly for TKO, they want more and more money, and they aren't going to stop until every last cent is squeezed out of every WWE fan. Now it's interesting, whenever fans compare Vince McMahon to Triple H, they often state that McMahon lived and breathed WWE. WWE was truly his life, and he was notable for barely sleeping, as he couldn't turn off his mind of all things pro wrestling. McMahon rarely missed a show, and if he did, he would always be on the phone directing traffic, even if this was down to heavy micromanaging. But this was evidently a role that McMahon missed dearly, as according to numerous guests at his 80th birthday party, McMahon began to manage the proceedings at his own party by wearing a WWE-style headset. In relation to Triple H, there's no denying that he has a true love for the art of wrestling, but more recently, it's been asked, is his heart truly in it? The game has a habit of popping off of the internet any chance he gets, and this is a far cry to the Triple H that first took over WWE creative all those years ago. Is running WWE too much for one man to handle? It's certainly a taxing job, and a job that many of us couldn't do, and it goes without saying that hopefully Triple H is looking after himself and remembering that he's just the head of WWE creative. There are so many other factors that go into the company thriving financially. But the accusations that the game may have lost his passion for WWE were furthered on September 9th, 2025. The game appeared on the Pat McAfee show, and he had zero idea that a planned world title segment between Io Sky and Stephanie Vaquer hadn't gone ahead on Raw. Shockingly, he revealed that he wasn't on Raw, and he was at Kill Tony, and he hadn't even watched the show yet. This revelation took the internet by storm, as how on earth isn't Triple H watching his own product? The world title segment was one of, if not the biggest planned segments for the show, and the fact that he didn't even know it didn't occur suggests that WWE creative simply isn't a focus for him right now. Why was Kill Tony more important than attending the flagship show? Who was producing Raw in his absence? Why didn't he bother to even watch the show even after? These comments raised so many questions, and it was ultimately a terrible look for Triple H and TKO as a whole. Now let's be fair, Vince McMahon is many things, and most of the insults you could throw at McMahon are justified. However, a puppet is one word you could never use to describe him. McMahon didn't like taking directions from anyone, and his micromanagement style was often a detriment to WWE's success and his own core relationship with his talent. Triple H has stripped back the micromanagement style, and in return, talent morale has gone through the roof. However, is it possible that Triple H is just acting as a puppet for TKO and doing their bidding? As we mentioned, TKO could in theory drop the game whenever they liked, and they definitely see him as a face of the corporate brand of WWE TKO. Triple H is featured in virtually all marketing materials for WWE, and they see him as a former notable wrestling personality that is recognizable and fans and wider consumers happen to know. TKO doesn't know how to operate WWE or a pro wrestling company. It's unknown territory for them. Vince McMahon had the ability to do absolutely everything in WWE, ranging from running the show to commentary, and that's the striking difference between McMahon and TKO. Thankfully, TKO has made so many welcome changes to the way WWE operates. The abolishment of live events every single weekend has helped talent rest, but some would argue that this was done as TKO saw the profits margin as too slim, and it wasn't done in order to preserve the health of the talent. This has even been supported by the number of international dates that TKO now looks to deliver each year, as their business model has gone from live events every weekend to sporadic international shows that warrant a significant price tag to attend. Ultimately, is WWE a better place for talent now that McMahon is out of the picture? Well, absolutely. However, it would depend on who you would ask. Despite the outstanding accusations levied against McMahon, he still has his supporters, and this was seen by the massive stars attending his recent birthday party. When it comes to the fans, the WWE product from a creative aspect is without a doubt in a much better place. McMahon's creative output during his final few active years could often be horrendous, and he was often booking to appease himself and nobody else. However, McMahon didn't see WWE as a way to make endless amounts of money. and he was never focused on increasing prices to such an extent where it's now alienated the core demographic, families. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.